Leonor is being treated for the same illness her grandfather had. Royal history repeats itself in the most painful form. Madrid, from the first days of her life, Princess Leonor, the heir apparent of the Spanish royal family, has been the subject of predictions, expectations and comparisons. But what few expected was that while all eyes were on the future, a part of the past, named Juan Carlos I, would quietly return, not through ceremony or scandal, but through a silent but persistent legacy: angiosarcoma. A closely guarded secret. This information was never made public. For many years, Queen Letizia always tried to keep Leonor away from the Bourbon shadow, not only in terms of politics or public image, but more deeply in terms of nature and genetics. She did not want Leonor to be influenced by someone she herself always considered the embodiment of corruption and backwardness. Juan Carlos I, the once famous king who later became the center of many scandals, lived throughout his childhood with a hemangioma, a benign vascular disorder that can cause complications, especially if it develops near sensitive organs such as the eyes, nose or central nervous system. Leonor, according to a source close to the royal family, was also diagnosed with the same disease as an infant. The truth was kept very secret, only known to a few royal doctors and trusted aides. The treatment, accordingly, was carried out in complete secrecy at a private medical facility in Madrid, under the guise of a routine internal medical evaluation. The bloodline is undeniable. Letizia tried everything to distance her daughter from the image of Juan Carlos, revealed a journalist who specializes in following the Spanish royal family. But how could she erase a part of Leonor's flesh and blood? From her gait, to her facial expressions, to her bright eyes with a determined gaze, Leonor has made many people exclaim because of her uncanny resemblance to her grandfather. However, what scares Letizia most is not her appearance, but the disease that has been passed down from generation to generation, a painful reminder that nothing can be completely denied. The Queen once confided to a psychiatrist that she felt like fate was laughing at her. In Letizia's eyes, the disease was more than a medical problem. It was a symbol, an invisible bond between Leonor and the man she hated most in her life. Leonor, fighting in silence. Although not life-threatening, hemangiomas require constant monitoring and sometimes medical intervention or laser surgery. For a character who always appears in public with a perfect and charismatic image like Leonor, hiding the traces of treatment, such as small scars or discolored skin, is a big challenge. However, Leonor, like many Bourbon women before her, has a strong will and absolute discipline. She never shows any fatigue or discomfort in her public appearances. No one knows that behind those confident steps and clear statements is a series of examinations, treatments and strict care regimens. Letizia, a private battle. For Queen Letizia, this is not only a journey to accompany her daughter to overcome illness, but also an internal battle. Since entering the royal family, she has constantly sought to modernize, redefine the role of women in the royal family, and further, change the way Spaniards view the throne. But the onset of this genetic disease, from a man she saw as a symbol of her corrupt past, left her feeling pulled back, trapped in a cycle she had struggled to escape. An old friend, now a professor of sociology at Complutense University, observed, "Letizia is a person who tends to control everything. Her inability to control her genetics is what torments her most. It is a battle that no one can win." The future still belongs to Leonor. Despite the disease that afflicted her grandfather, Leonor has never been defined by it. She lives, studies and trains within a strict framework, preparing for her future role as a female monarch. Her health condition, properly controlled, should not greatly affect that journey, at least in theory. The question remains, however, can Leonor become a new person, detached from her past without denying it? Or will the Bourbon blood itself, with all its beauty and darkness, always be a part of her story? One doctor on her treatment team shared anonymously, "Leonor was very brave. She never complained, but her eyes, you could see an unspoken sadness in them, as if she knew very well what connected her to someone her mother never wanted to talk about." Royal response: silence is the last shield. In the face of increasingly widespread speculation in the European press, the Spanish royal family has remained completely silent. Not a single official statement, not a single denial or confirmation, as if the silence were part of the Bourbon family's strategy for dealing with its own past. A source from Zarzuela's inner circle revealed, "Letizia has always believed that what happens inside the family is sacred and should not be exposed to the public. Especially issues related to Leonor's health, she sees that as the final line that cannot be crossed." This attitude reflects the style of a woman who used to be a journalist, knows the dark side of the media, and has had her image distorted by the press many times in the past. Meanwhile, King Felipe VI, a devoted father who has always protected his two daughters from the prying eyes of the world, is said to have fully supported his wife in her decision to keep medical information private. However, some have argued that this silence is simply a form of denial of what cannot be changed. "Felipe is a Bourbon," commented a historian who wrote a biography of Juan Carlos I. "He knows very well that the truth can hurt, so sometimes the best option is never to touch it." Divide in opinion. What does the Spanish public think? When news of Leonor's angiosarcoma began to leak through Portuguese and Italian press channels, Spanish social media was abuzz. Many expressed deep sympathy for the princess, especially from parents of young children who had gone through similar treatment journeys. One user on the X platform wrote, "Leonor is a real fighter. I know what a hemangioma is. My daughter was on medication for 2 years. There is no shame in inheriting something that no one chose." However, there were also criticisms of the royal family for hiding information. "Why do you have to paint a perfect image? Leonor will be queen. The public has a right to know if she is undergoing treatment for an illness, benign or not." Some respected journalists took a more neutral stance. In a commentary published in El País, journalist Patricia Montero wrote, "The problem here is not an illness. The problem is that we, as a society, have not yet learned how to separate an individual from the symbolic burden we impose on them. Leonor is not a copy of Juan Carlos I, nor should she be treated as such." Medical experts speak out. From a medical perspective, angiomas are not uncommon. It is estimated that 1 in 10 newborns have this disease at a mild level, and most cases resolve on their own or are effectively controlled with medication. However, if the angiomas develop near the eyes, mouth or vital organs, they need to be treated aggressively with propranolol, a beta blocker that has been widely used in recent years. A dermatologist at La Paz Hospital, Madrid, when asked about Leonor's case, although he did not directly treat her, said, "If she really had this disease since childhood and was treated properly, there is a high chance that there is no risk of complications. However, the psychological factor is equally important, especially when you are the heir to the throne and have to appear in front of millions of people." Will the disease affect the future of the reign? This question has been asked by many monarchists. Could Leonor serve as queen if she had been treated for vascular disease? The answer, in theory, is yes. There is no law or provision in the Spanish constitution that would prevent someone with angiomatosis, or who had been treated for it, from ascending to the throne. However, in practice, symbolic elements, especially image, can have an impact. The royal family, since Franco's time, has always been built up as an ideal, flawless model. Therefore, admitting a flaw, however small, can be seen as a crack in the royal wall.